Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a long off season so far and still got about a month or two left before we can kind of get into serious growing. But wanted to put a video out there kind of getting people prepared for the season to start, kind of some things to think about to get your grow ready. I'm going to go over some tests that I do during the winter time, some new, some things that I just do every year, and maybe some equipment if you haven't gotten any or are looking to get some, what you can do to help out your grow. Let's get into it. So before we get into the plants and the tests themselves, we're going to go over the setup. Right now I'm using just a 4x4 grow tent. This is the first season I've actually used this grow tent. It's approximately 6 foot tall. Like I said, 4x4 footprint, and does real well as far as the size goes. It comes with a tray on its own on the bottom, and then a couple of support brackets. Everything so far has held up. Like I said, it's my first season, so I can't give it a crazy review. I'll go over everything that's going on in here. I know that you're looking around at different things, but one thing I did add for it is zip ties, because I do hang the stuff off of the supports, and so I used quite a bit of zip ties, PVCs, notched out for brackets, just to kind of keep things in a certain distance and support method that I have here. As far as what I'm supporting, we'll go over the most common things that you'll use, and then we'll kind of get into some things that I use. The light fixtures themselves, I have two different types of lights. This one here, can't remember the name offhand, I'm looking at it. You can kind of look at it. I think it's upside down. This is one of my oldest lights. Works good. Power's good, intensity's good, and that one's probably about 4 or 5 years old right now. I'll kind of give you a little bit of lights, see how it is there. Nice little mix of lights, has a dial as far as turning up or down the intensity. For the most part, I just use distance for intensity. I measure the power and the lumens and all that good stuff, and as long as you kind of keep the lights somewhere between 12 to 14 inches from the plants at all time, seems to be about right for the lumens and the power scale that these lights provide. This one here, I'll have to put a link, I don't remember the name. I actually just bought a second version of these. They can be daisy chained together. But this particular light works really well. I've had this one for about 3 years now. I would say this one was probably a slight upgrade to the first light. Like I said, I'll try and put something on the screen to show you what it is. There's actually a sale going on with them right now, so that's why I want to add a third light in here for when all the plants are starting and going in the grow tent. I'll go into how often and the hours on and off, so the light cycles that I use during my tests, but right now we'll kind of just go over all the equipment. Right here, this PVC tube that I have, it's linked to a 4-inch inline fan, a can fan. So I use that. It's on the outside, so it's actually sucking air out. And then what I have is a one of these vents on the lower side. I have a screen over it. I have it on the low end of the tent. With it, that's kind of the inlet, so it sucks out the upper humid air, and that's on a sensor. And I'll go over those sensors in a little bit. But that's kind of what that intake is for, is it's or outlet, actually it's exhaust. So next we'll go over the fan I have there. This is just for air circulation. I use that when the temps get too high, so it kicks on and off throughout the day, and it'll just rotate and keep the air from getting too stagnant and kind of keep things moving. So between that and the exhaust fan that kicks on, that's off of humidity. So I'll go over that again when I go over the sensors. You got air circulation all day long, so it's not getting too hot and too stagnant in here. So last but not least, as far as equipment goes, I don't have any external heat. I did have this heater put in here, but I never used it. I turned it on for a few minutes just while I was standing here, and for this size grow tent, it's really overkill, and I'd probably end up burning plants or ruining the grow tent. So do not use that inside these grow tents. The lights put off quite a bit of heat. Not a lot, but I mean, it stays 75 degrees in here on its own, and this is a basement, so the ambient air temperature is about 65 for me, and these lights, when the tent's closed up, brings it over 75 degrees. Like I said, I have sensors hooked up, so the exhaust fans and everything circulate air and keep it at a standard temperature. So that brings me to some of the last bits of equipment. This particular cord there that you see in the black line, that's a thermostat sensor there. So that's reading the ambient temperature. So that's what this fan is hooked up to. It's hooked up to one of those kind of heat mat style outlet sensors where you just kind of plug it in and set the temperature. So I have the temperature for the grow room set for, I believe, 70. Actually, let me check it out. There you go. It's set for 75. It's currently 74.6 with the door open. And anytime it gets above 75, that fan will kick on. So I have that on the cooling side. As far as the sensors go, I have these Govee sensors. I absolutely love them. I have them labeled for where they're at. I have some above the lights, so I can monitor where different temperatures and humidities and things like that are happening. So I have one at the top of the tent above the lights, one at plant level, and then one on the floor. Floor is probably unnecessary unless you got very low plants or you're growing on the floor. I mainly pay attention to the mid to upper sensor. Again, there's an outlet that the Govees hook up to. So what I'm paying attention to is the humidity in here. And that's what this exhaust fan is hooked up to. So when the humidity gets above 65% in here, this exhaust fan will kick on and suck out the humid air and pull in new fresh air. That kicks on throughout the day. I'll try and put on a screenshot of kind of the fluctuations here from my Govee and how that works. Again, you can purchase that on Amazon. A lot of the stuff that I have here is just Amazon purchased. But that's kind of how my setup is. I'm paying attention to heat, humidity, and that's pretty much kind of giving me things to dial in on the grow. So we'll get into the test plants now. We'll get into the larger of the two. This was an old seed. This is actually from my first 1,000-pound pumpkin. I believe it was 2014. So I wanted to see how old they'll germinate. Plant did well. Starting out, it was a little slow, but once it got going, it did pretty good. I'll try and put a picture up here of it as it was going. But the experiment I'm kind of doing with this is I'm kind of looking at how the plant reacts to being chopped and different fertilizers and stuff like that. But one thing I did is this was the initial main. Once it got about a foot long past here, I cut it, and this was a secondary coming off. And I just kept doing that. As soon as it got about a foot long, I'd chop it and I'd keep going. And I'm about to do that again here. I'll do that and then I'll chop it. And pretty much I want to see the dominant lead on that and how it performs in the secondary growth. Because one thing that happened with the world record pumpkin that Travis Ginger grew this past year was he grew, world record pumpkin, potentially almost 2 world record pumpkins on tertiary vines. So I'm looking at the dominance of, auxins and how the plant reacts to being chopped and divided, and that could be indications of cloning in the future, as well as different vine patterns and how this base strengthens up or deteriorates, or what happens to this old growth and leaves. The plant's not in the best shape. I think there is a little bit of blanching and things that are happening just from these lights, and also from the fertilizers that I've been testing out, trying different things and seeing what happens. So overall, good test here, just kind of testing out what happens with it, testing old seeds, couple different tests going on in that one plant. So just looking at it, doesn't look like a fantastic plant. Like I said, a lot of light in color, but overall it's growing well. It's got secondary growth, it's got flowering, not too much flowering to where it looks like it's extremely stressed out. Main growing tip looks healthy. So overall, good plant there. Now what we have over here is, this is kind of a go live test. So this is what I've learned from different things. It's a little higher in nitrogen, but I wanted to push the limits. Looking at how it's growing there, coming out here, this would have been genetics that would potentially grow, you know, a 2,000 pound pumpkin. So I believe that seed is actually from one of my 2376 offsprings. I believe it might have been from the damaged fruit a couple of years ago. That was around 1,200 pounds. I can't remember if it was day 40 or 50 or whatever. Probably would have been day 50 if I'm not mistaken. But it was a good pumpkin, great genetics, and just kind of checking out and seeing, you know, what a Go Life plant was. Now this is beyond the size that I would have in a grow room. I would have transplanted this out probably on its second to third true leaf. But again, I'm just experimenting, testing out fertilizers, pushing the plant to the limits, and seeing what it does. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Not doing a whole lot of editing here. Pretty much just pausing and talking through the video. Water is the only other thing I haven't talked about, and the fertilizers that I've done. I'm not really going to go over a whole lot of the fertilizer stuff in this video. I'll probably do that closer to the grow season. But as far as the water, I have the 2 jugs there that I keep in the tent, and I alternate between them. Obviously, the one's always warm and fresh, and the other one's you know, one that I rotate to as it warms up. So isopropyl alcohol, anytime I'm cutting, I'm still doing that. One thing I will call out is, you see these little sticky strips, you get them on Amazon. They are fantastic for the adult fungus gnats. So anytime you have an area like this where you kind of got higher humidity and you know, maybe some soil, bad potting mix, and you're going to get fungus gnats, those are awesome to use. So if I missed anything, or if there's something you have questions on, feel free to ask. Like I said, I'll put as many pictures and links as possible, but catch you guys on the next one.